I come to you from the traditional homelands of the Kanaka Maoli and Kanaka Uivi, where on January 17th, 1893, under gunpoint, Queen Liliuokalani temporarily yielded authority to the United States government to save her people. My positionality as a gose, or a fifth-generation Japanese descendant of settlers, and a biologist reminds me of the impermanence of experience. I recognize that the Hawaii where my ancestors docked in the late 1800s is a far cry from the Hawaii my keiki and I know and learn from. These changes are amplified as we reflect further to the earlier generations of Kanaka prior to the dispossession of Aina by belligerent occupation. I am charged by Akuleana to remember and to sustain Aina that thrives amidst global climate change and capitalism. Today is our 7th day of not having any rain. It's beautiful outside. It's sunny. It's warm during the days and cool at night. But Hilo, where I am from, is not used to so much sun the way that Arizona might be familiar. So when I think about the winds outside, when I think about the lack of rain, what it really comes down to right now is that luckily the mamane are thriving, a plant that is so needed and biologically connected to our palila, which is an endangered species. I just looked up its number. It's about 940 remaining in all on Earth. So while it may be odd and different to some people in some places, it's wonderful for our mamane and our palila. The thriving Waiakea stream that I can hear from my backyard empties to the Waiakea pond that was poisoned by arsenic from sugarcane mills, powered on imported labor. And as a steward of this aina, or this land, I recognize that this is a sacred space, the home of my ohana, the source of nourishment, and a place of joy. So I recognize that the Aboriginal Hawaiians and the Hawaiian nationals who continue to make meaningful contributions across Hawaii and to the world. I offer gratitude for the aina itself, for its generation of stewards, and for the opportunity to connect with them, with you, with us in this place. And so I come to you as a teacher, as a learner, as a doctoral student, in so many other ways, as a mother, as a daughter. And I want to say that I love my places that I'm at. It's easy to say that I love Hawaii. It's very easy. And I hope that each one of you feels that you love your place as well. Whether it's a desert environment, it's a city environment, a town, a reservation, and so forth. All these places have such deep meaning for us. Places don't have to be outdoors. They can be the place that we stand right now, that we are making meaning together in community, just like how I see you folks there. Places can be childhood connections. Just about 10 minutes ago, I was really excited. I was thinking like, oh, I can't wait to meet all these educators. And I decided to post a picture on Instagram and Twitter. And if you are connected with me on Instagram and Twitter, you can just find me online, that I posted a picture of my dad and I getting ready for one of my first adventures out surfing in Honolulu, one of our local surf spots. My dad is an avid surfer. And so when I was invited to talk to you today as you engage with Hit and Nalu, or the art and legacy of Hawaiian surfing, it is near and dear to my heart. My dad is 71 years old and he's still out on the waves every day. But these places and these things, they make such meaning for us. Now, sense of place, I would say, is not always positive. For my dad, that place out on the waves is his home. He feels like he has a sense of belonging. He exchanges his time and his gifts with other surfers to engage with the waves itself, the beach. He cleans up the beach and so forth. But that sense of place is a little bit different for me. While I love being with my father, I as a 4-year-old, was deathly afraid of the waves. My dad wanted so much for me to be a surfer that he would stand me on the washing machine. Back then, I think the washing machines were a little bit more agitated. He would stand me on it and said, Stan, try to balance yourself and things. That I was like, I'm never going to do this. So as a swimmer, he felt as long as you can swim in the ocean, that'd be enough for him. So my sense of place is a little bit less positive, but still extremely meaningful. And so our sense of places that I like for you to take with you as we walk through this journey today is that sense of place doesn't always have to be positive, and that's okay. That's how we make meaning with the world. We make meaning with the world of all of our emotions, of happiness, of sadness, of anger, of fear, and that's okay. Every emotion is okay. And when our students accept, and we accept that every emotion is okay in the classroom, is okay in our communities, and we can appreciate that, then we're going to move forward with understanding a sense of belonging, a sense of responsibility to our places. So that's my relationship with Nalu and surfing, but it's an auspicious day today. I don't know if they are talking about it, but we are so excited in Hawaii. Tomorrow, first, that it's the Lunar New Year, so we're super stoked about that. I'm excited for the Year of the Rabbit, in the sense where the Year of the Rabbit sometimes tells us that it's going to be a softer, calmer year. This past Year of the Tiger has been a bit much. I'm sure that you've experienced that in the classroom. It's been like that agitated, that really raw year, and that was the Year of the Tiger. And the Year of the Rabbit should calm it down a little bit more, crossing our fingers that that's going to happen. But tomorrow in Hawaii, the eddy is a go. So when we talk about He'enalu, I'm sure that Eddie Aikau is there at the exhibition. I hope that he is. But he embodies what the Aloha spirit is. And I'd like to still speak of him in the present tense, even though we experience that passing. He embodies the Aloha spirit. He embodies a sense of belonging, a sense of responsibility to his crewmates on the Hokulea, to his fellow surfers out on the waves, and to his family. And so his family now green-lighted this eddy competition that's going to happen. I think we're seeing 50-foot waves at Waimea Bay this morning. So it's going to be an amazing experience. And if you have an opportunity to tune in to the Eddie Aikau surfing championships tomorrow, it's going to be major. All the surfers from across the world are flying in for this. And the reason why it's so exciting is that the eddy doesn't happen every year. The eddy happens only when the surf will guarantee be a certain height and for a prolonged period, so that there is no break in the competition. So the Eddie Aikau tournament was green-lighted a few weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, and we're so excited. But then because the meteorologists and the oceanographers had said, like, oh, it's not going to be consistent, they called it off. And so we were kind of crossing our fingers that it was going to happen. So now it's happening tomorrow. So I hope that you tune in for that. And also, my sense of surfing is not always positive, but it gives me an insight to my students who are surfers, because I participated in these events or these experiences, because I know the potential fear, the excitement, the thrill that happens on a wave. I can talk to my students about it. It's a way to make connection, to ensure that they can tell that I see them, and that I can see past their execution of a biology test, that I can see past their ability to write an essay, but that surfing is for the fearless. And if they can be fearless on the wave, they can be fearless with the pen, and they can be fearless in an assessment. And these are things that we talk to our students about, that we try to connect with our students at all times. So a place-based education. What does that mean? Does that mean that you have to transform your entire curriculum to ensure that place is representative of each section? I don't think so. But I would suggest, and I would remind, that a place-based education is not just an extraction of knowledge. What do I mean by an extraction? Well, when I look at tests, a lot of tests or assignments that are handed to me as someone in Hawaii is written on the continent, is written where you might be, or is written in Texas, is written in Georgia, is written in New York. And so they tell me, in this tree, can you talk about this tree and talk about photosynthesis as a biology teacher? And I can, but I'm not going to talk about the oak tree. I'm not going to talk about the cactus that is able to hold so much water in a desert environment. I'm not going to talk about a tumbleweed from Texas. What I can overlay that with a koa tree, with a tree that is reminiscent of our heritage and our place, but I'm not just going to overlay it and say, well, now I can give it to my students because that's a place-based education. An example of what that means is that, yes, I'm going to replace the trees that I use in a biology curriculum with a koa tree. But I'm going to replace it in the sense where there is a connection to the biology of it, there's a connection to our culture, and there is a metaphor that I can use to experience, and I can talk about this experience with my students. So first, a koa tree. A koa tree is the tallest, the strongest tree in our native Hawaiian forest. The native Hawaiians used it to build the first surfboards. It was kind of a heavy surfboard, but they used it because it could float, but also be strong. They used it because it was such a tall tree to carve canoe so that they could travel from place to place across the Pacific. This koa tree is the foundation of our native Hawaiian forests. It provides food, shelter, water, nutrients to a variety of flora and fauna, and it's a watershed tree in our forest, so it filters out all of the pollutants and the different things that are going through. That's a conversation that I'm going to have with my biology students, because it makes sense to them why we would talk about a koa tree instead of maybe an oak tree, instead of a cactus. But I'm also going to shift it to, what does koa mean for us? Well, koa in the Hawaiian language, it means warrior, brave, fearless, bold. What an opportunity to engage with this tree and to think about how it teaches us to be brave, fearless, bold, and a warrior. If it makes canoes, if it makes the sturdiest surfboards, isn't that being bold, fearless, brave, and a warrior? That is a connection that I can make to koa with my students and our culture aligned. And the best thing is that I can connect koa to what that meant for us during this past pandemic. I know it's so hard to talk about the pandemic, but the koa taught us something, and it was something that we utilize in our schools. So something interesting about the koa is that a koa seedling, so the seed that would produce a koa tree, it can't just be planted. A koa seedling must endure a scarification, a cut, a gash, some kind of trauma in order for it to germinate. That sounds familiar. A trauma? Well, our students experience trauma over this pandemic. We, as teachers, as educators, as mothers, as fathers, as parents, as aunties and uncles, we experience trauma too throughout this pandemic. So what a way to think about koa in the Hawaiian language as bold, brave, fearless, warrior, but that it must endure a trauma, a scarification, in order to eventually germinate, to become bold, brave, fearless, and a warrior. We can take this metaphor, we can talk about it in a science context, we can talk about it in a language arts context, we can talk about it in a social science context. This tree has now given us any breath of opportunity to engage with our students, to talk about a place or something in our place that we are familiar with that extrapolates way beyond. Instead of an oak tree, we're going to talk about a koa tree. And this can happen with multiple things. I mean, I think about the cacti in Arizona. the 1 or 2 times that I've been to Arizona. I want to come back again. And the cactus, the ability to hold water, to hold so much in such a harsh environment, the heat, the cold, the lack of humidity, the dryness, all these things, and it holds for us. Like thinking back to what indigenous peoples or the first inhabitants of North America use these cactus for, like it can teach us more lessons than a cactus is a C4 plant or a CAM plant. It can teach us much more than the ability to photosynthesize when there's ultimate sun and desiccation. It can teach us about how to hold that which feeds us, that which nourishes us, so that we can continue and we can persevere in difficult environments. So whether you engage on a science concept with me, it's okay. I like to bring up science terms because that is what I'm most familiar with. And a lot of things that I do in science have a social science lens to it. Another activity that we did in our environmental science class was that when our sense of place is so individual to us and we love certain places, we have to go beyond this idea that we love this place for what it serves for us, but how can it serve for others? And what do I mean by that? An example that I used to do with my students is that I wanted them so desperately to have a sense of place when I was first starting to teach. I believed place was important, but I didn't really know how to go about doing it from an experience that I was teaching in a classroom. This is pre-pandemic, just teaching a classroom, go home, do your homework, and come back. And so I had my students go out on this get outdoors assignment. I know, right? Get outdoors. And it was my first foray into this place-based education. Like, what can place teach you? So I said, go outdoors, spend 2 hours outdoors, and report back on the experience. How does that change you? A lot of times this is maybe like likened to a touch grass assignment. Go out and touch grass. You need to put your feet on earth in order to kind of ground yourselves again, because so much is they're struggling with being at home or doing homework and getting into the busyness of life that they didn't really stop to think about the natural environment around them. And whether they're Hawaii students or they're any students on the continent, they're pretty similar. They're all on their Instagrams, their TikToks, and everything else that allows them to hyper focus on the screen in front of them and often forget what's outside. So I pushed them out and I said, hey, go outdoors 2 hours. And I got back these beautiful assignments. I got back these Instagram posts that were like posed and did the whole panorama shot. I got back reflections that said, this transformed me. It made my day. I think I'm going to go outside more. And it made me feel really good as a teacher. Oh, my students got it. And they went on with their day like nothing ever happened. So I had to, after a few years of that, I had to really be introspective and reflective that, am I doing a good service to my students by making this assignment? And really, I had to think about, what is their sense of place to these, what is their connection to these places? And then if they love it so much, does everybody love it too? Is there a way that we can make places more inclusive, especially places that we love so much? So I transformed that lesson and I said, we are all going to go to the national park, the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And this was a little bit during COVID. So I sent them out on their journey, and Volcano had some openings to allow students in. I said, go to the Volcanoes National Park and tell me if every single person that walks in this place can have an amazing experience like you say that you have in these places. And so what was reported back to me was something that was extremely enlightening. They came back with things like, this trail, I love this Kilauea Iki trail, but it might not be accessible to all people. If you're wheelchair bound, if you're visually impaired, you're not going to experience it the same way that I do. The bathrooms at the time were binary, so there was a male and female bathroom, and another student had said, you know, a non-binary person might not feel included in this space, so what can we do? And of course, it's a national park. You're not going to do much at that place. But then I said, now take this experience of being out in a place that is beautiful, that is paradise, and now transform that lens to where we are in school, to where you are at your work internships. Could you perceive places a little bit differently, places that you love, places that you are passionate about, and problematize them a little bit so that you can see how other individuals experience a sense of place in the same places that you are in. It's been kind of a wonderful journey for us to go on these paths with students, for them to perceive beauty and then to problematize paradise. Because so often do we see the Instagram posts, so often do we see these beautiful shots of Hawaii, but like, what is the inclusivity for our community in that sense? And I think that I'm still on this journey, or I believe that I'm still on this journey, because what I want for my students so desperately is to have a sense of belonging in our classroom, in our school, in our community, and in our environment. But what I'm really uncovering through my journey of understanding a sense of belonging is that a sense of belonging in places is that there is a reciprocity and exchange. So something that I think we may have experienced is that we want our students to feel that they have a sense of belonging when they walk into our classroom. That on the first day of school, you say to yourself, my students are going to feel seen. My students are going to feel embraced by the classroom that I've set up for them. All students will. And a sense of belonging looks differently for every student, because sense of place happens even in our classrooms. That sense of place does not always have to look the same and is not going to feel the same for every student. And I've had to let go of that mono version of what I thought belonging means. For some of our students, sense of belonging means that they can express themselves very loudly. You know, you have those students, they express themselves so loudly, and they nestle into their seat, they engage, they pick up that pencil, and they're ready to learn with you. And then there's those other students who have a sense of belonging because that is the quietest space in their entire day. I've had those students that say, I just want to sit over here. I just want to, I'll do the work, but I'm just going to sit over here right now. And for me, as someone who is extroverted in the classroom, it was hard for me to unwrap that understanding. So, but there has to be an exchange there. There has to be a reciprocity of that student says that to you and you see them and you meet them halfway. Yes, you can sit in that corner. Absolutely. The work has to get done, and we're going to have a conversation to ensure that you're understanding that, to build that sense of belonging, of reciprocity and trust. And now take that experience and that expertise that you have, because you have so much expertise, and now draw it out to the community. That's where that place-based education really comes in. You see each student so specifically, you know your students so specifically. And now, can you draw that out so they can have a reciprocal experience with the community? And if you're wondering, how do I engage in that process? Ask yourself also, do I have a reciprocal experience with my community? Am I exchanging a sense of responsibility? As I give as a teacher, am I receiving from that? And as I receive the gifts of our community, am I giving back into that community? something that I really think about when I think about sense of belonging and responsibility in our places is that our places, we know our places, we have memories of our places, we have core memories, we have emotions of our places. And now, how can you, as a teacher, as an individual, as an adult, alongside your students, create opportunities for your places to have memories of you all? How will you engage with places so much that there will be memories of you there? This is a conversation and a question that I bring to my students every year. It doesn't always mean that we're going to change, that we're going to improve, that we're going to extremely go in a technological force there, but we are going to exchange with our land and our community so that our places have memories of us as well. One thing that I'm excited about being with you all with the Heard Museum is that the Heard Museum, I'm impressed. I've been following social media because it's the closest I can get to the museum. I've been following social media about the Heard Museum, and it's intricate ties with Indigenous art and Indigenous culture. And I love it. I think it's amazing. And as educators, I put out this ask to you, is that when you engage with these materials and with Nalu and thinking about Hawaiian surfing and the legacies of such and the exhibitions moving forward, that you engage your class with a conversation about my door might slam soon. Sorry. You engage your conversation, a conversation with your class. Sorry. My door was going to slam. Sorry. You engage in a conversation with your class about the responsibility with these resources. I'm sure that there is so much conversation happening at the museum about the uniqueness and the responsibility, the kuleana, the access that we have to these resources, that we have to also be trusted with them. I love that you were able to engage with Nalu and that you were trusted with this knowledge. So much of our place knowledge is because we were trusted with this knowledge, whether it's from our direct lineage of families, or it's from our community, or it's even from the environment, that you were entrusted with the knowledge of what the wind tastes like. That you take that trust that you build in your classroom every day with your students, and that you exemplify that with digital artifacts, with cultural artifacts, and with Indigenous knowledge and all knowledge in general. Your students are these trusted vessels that we are importing knowledge into, and we're pouring our knowledge into. And I'm so happy to be in community with you because of it. So as I close today, I want to be mindful of the time. As I close today, it is about the exchange. That place-based education, first and foremost, is always about the exchange. That places teach us so much. They teach us not only about what it is, and where we are, but who we are as people, as our identities, and they teach us about who we are together as a community. And when we learn these things and we're entrusted with this knowledge, that you take that and you pour back into that place, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, that we pour back into our places because our places need memories of us. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you in community with you tonight.